First round of the NBA playoffs sees lots of upsets. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NBA. Local experts joining us to go over all of the playoff results from yesterday in the NBA. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Lakers were able to go into Memphis and get a win in Game 1 over the Grizzlies. Locked On Lakers recaps that victory. Locked On Grizzlies talks over the loss and also Ja Morant's injury.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers open up their first round series with the Grizzlies with a 128-112 win in Memphis, a game where, aside from excessive turnovers in the second quarter and a cold first half from behind the arc, a lot went right for the Lakers. Anthony Davis was a beast on both ends, 22 points, 17 rebounds, 7 blocks, and 3 steals, despite a right shoulder stinger that had everybody, frankly, nervous for a little bit when he eventually returned into the game. 23 points from Austin Reaves in his playoff debut, including 14 in the fourth quarter, 29 points from Rui Hachimura, setting a franchise record for scoring off the bench in a playoff game. You get 21, 11, and 5 plus 3 blocks from LeBron, 19 points, 7 assists from D'Angelo Russell, and the Lakers absolutely own the glass in this game. They need to make sure to tighten up their mistakes because Memphis is not a team that they can afford to give away possessions to, but all in all, it is a very promising start to the Lakers in this, frankly, improbable playoff run they're looking to make. A lot more to get into, so make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel and that you make Locked On Lakers your first listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The Memphis Grizzlies were able to hang around for a little while in that game. A strong second quarter performance with the Los Angeles Lakers ran Memphis off the court in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, on their way to a Game 1 victory over Memphis. And now the Grizzlies have lost home court advantage. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and attention for Memphis over the next couple of days turns to the status of Ja Morant, who suffered a re-aggravation or another hit on his already injured hand that was taped up already to start the game. Some positives for Memphis: Jaren Jackson Jr. had a massive performance offensively, really showed flashes of being unguardable against the Lakers. But when Anthony Davis and LeBron James go off, you expect it. When Austin Reaves and Rui Hachimura combine for 50 or more points, that's a real problem. And if that's going to happen, the Grizzlies have some serious issues in this series.
Phoenix gave up home court advantage as they dropped their first game to the Clippers in their series. Locked On Suns explains what went down post-game.
A poor first half and some opportunistic rebounding by the Los Angeles Clippers do the Suns in here in Game 1. Brendan Clean with Locked On Suns coming to you after the Suns 115-110 loss at home to the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs. I believe Game 1s have gone to the road team almost half the time since the bubble back in 2020, so the Suns not in a position to panic, but their superstar players did not make shots in the first half. They just looked a little groggy, out of sorts, not very determined and focused, executing their offense in the first half. And then defensively, the other side, they do make a run in the second half. They do hit the gas, but only go up 6 or 8, and it's not enough to build a big enough lead to withstand a final Clippers run and what ends up being a victory. Some nice threes, some big plays by Russell Westbrook. Everything comes together for the Clippers. For more on this team, listen to Locked On Suns wherever you get your podcasts.
The Timberwolves and Nuggets teed off in the late game on Sunday. Our Locked On hosts have a recap of everything that you need to know from Denver.
The Minnesota Timberwolves were blown out in the second half of Game 1 of the first round series against the Denver Nuggets and now find themselves in a 1-0 hole in the first round playoff series. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Wolves podcast. This was a close game for much of the first half. The Wolves actually played really well defensively on Jamal Murray and actually did a pretty good job on Nikola Jokic as well. But Karl-Anthony Towns only had 4 first half points. It took Anthony Edwards a little while to get going as well. And the Nuggets role players consistently outplayed the Wolves role players for the entire game. Denver pulled away in the third quarter, outscoring Minnesota by 18 in the third quarter alone, and ultimately held on for a 29-point win. Again, Nuggets role players, Joker kind of coming to life in the middle stages of the game, and the struggles for Karl Anthony Towns, 5 of 15 from the field. Only 2 Timberwolves starters in double figures. Towns with 11, Anthony Edwards with 18 on 15 shots. Not an efficient night for the Wolves offense. We're going to break the whole thing down on Locked On Wolves. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves.
That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NBA. Now that it's the playoffs, make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On NBA and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.